Your doctor probably told you to watch your cholesterol. Maybe they handed you a pamphlet about eating less saturated fat. But here's what almost nobody talks about. The right oil, used the right way, can actually start reversing years of arterial buildup, soften stiff blood vessels, and get your circulation moving again. And if you're over 60, this is probably the most important thing you can do for your heart that doesn't involve a single prescription. We're talking about one specific oil that has decades of research behind it, not some trendy superfood someone just discovered. This has been studied on actual people with real measurable outcomes, things like reduced plaque thickness, lower inflammatory markers, and significantly improved blood flow. And when you hear exactly how it works inside your arteries, you're going to understand why everything else you've tried may have fallen short. So let's get into it.
The oil we're talking about is extra virgin olive oil. And before you think, oh, I've heard this before, stay with me, because most people are using it wrong, buying the wrong kind, or don't fully understand what it's actually doing inside their body. When you know the mechanism, when you understand what's happening at the cellular level, you start taking this a lot more seriously. Your arteries are not just tubes, they're living tissue. They have an inner lining called the endothelium, and that lining is incredibly sensitive. When you're young and healthy, it's smooth, flexible, and it releases a compound called nitric oxide that keeps your blood vessels relaxed and open. But over time, from poor diet, stress, high blood sugar, smoking, even just aging itself, that lining gets damaged. Small injuries happen, inflammation sets in, and your body, trying to patch those injuries, starts depositing cholesterol, calcium, and other materials into the arterial wall. That's plaque. That's what hardens your arteries. That's what restricts blood flow and raises your risk of heart attack and stroke. Extra virgin olive oil contains a compound called oleocanthal. Think of oleocanthal as a natural anti-inflammatory agent. It actually works similarly to ibuprofen at a biochemical level. It directly reduces the inflammation in that arterial lining. When the inflammation calms down, your body stops the emergency patching response. The plaque stops accumulating as fast, and existing arterial stiffness begins to ease up. Then there's the oleic acid, a monounsaturated fatty acid that makes up about 70 to 80% of olive oil. This is not just a good fat in a vague feel-good sense. Oleic acid actively helps lower LDL oxidation. Oxidized LDL is the dangerous kind, the kind that actually sticks to artery walls and causes damage. Regular LDL is manageable. Oxidized LDL is the real culprit in arterial disease. Oleic acid intercepts that process. And then you have the polyphenols, hydroxytyrosol, tyrosol, oleuropein. These are powerful antioxidants that are found almost exclusively in high-quality olive oil. They mop up free radicals in the bloodstream before those free radicals can attack the artery walls. A 2020 study published in the journal Nutrients found that regular consumption of extra virgin olive oil significantly improved endothelial function in adults with cardiovascular risk factors, meaning their artery linings literally worked better after adding olive oil to their diet. Now, here's where most people make their first big mistake, and it's a costly one. Not all olive oil is the same. This is not a minor detail. It's the whole ball game. The polyphenols, the oleocanthal, the antioxidants, they only exist in meaningful amounts in genuine, high-quality extra virgin olive oil. The moment you pick up a cheap bottle labeled pure olive oil or light olive oil, you are getting a refined product that has been heated and processed in ways that destroy most of those beneficial compounds. You're essentially left with a fat that's nutritionally similar to many generic vegetable oils. Even a lot of bottles that say extra virgin on the label have been found to be adulterated or oxidized before they even reach the store shelf. A University of California, Davis study found that over 69% of imported olive oils sold in American supermarkets failed to meet extra virgin standards. That is a huge number. So when you're buying olive oil for your heart, here's what you look for: a harvest date on the bottle, not just an expiration date. You want oil that was harvested within the last 12 to 18 months. You want dark glass or opaque packaging because light destroys polyphenols. You want a slightly peppery, even slightly bitter taste when you first try it. That peppery burn in the back of your throat is literally the oleocanthal. If it tastes completely neutral and mild, the beneficial compounds are gone. Single origin oils from places like Greece, southern Italy, or Spain tend to be more reliably potent. Brands that carry a PDO or PGI certification, protected designation of origin, protected geographical indication, have gone through verification processes. That label matters. Let's talk about how much you actually need. A lot of people drizzle a tiny bit of olive oil on a salad once in a while and figure they're covered. The research says something different. The landmark PREDIMED trial, one of the largest cardiovascular nutrition studies ever conducted, following over 7,000 people for nearly 5 years, found that people in the Mediterranean diet group who consumed at least 4 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil per day had a 30% lower risk of major cardiovascular events compared to the low-fat diet group, 4 tablespoons. That's not a drizzle. That's a generous, intentional daily serving. Now, that might sound like a lot of fat, and here's where is the second big mistake comes in. People are still terrified of fat because of advice that's been largely overturned in the scientific community. The low-fat diet craze of the 80s and 90s actually caused enormous harm. When people cut fat out, they replaced it with refined carbohydrates and sugar, which are far more damaging to the cardiovascular system than healthy fats. The science has done a full reversal on this, but the old fear still lingers. Healthy fat does not make you fat. Healthy fat does not clog your arteries. In fact, the fat in extra virgin olive oil is one of the primary reasons the Mediterranean diet consistently outperforms every other dietary pattern in cardiovascular outcome studies. Now let's get practical, because knowing the oil is one thing. Knowing how to actually use it is what changes your health. The first thing to do is make it your default cooking fat for low to medium heat cooking. Sautéing vegetables, cooking eggs, softening onions, and garlic. All of this can be done with olive oil at temperatures under about 375 degrees Fahrenheit. A persistent myth says you cannot cook with extra virgin olive oil because its smoke point is too low. That's largely misleading. The polyphenols actually help stabilize the oil against oxidation even when heated to moderate cooking temperatures. Multiple studies have confirmed that EVOO is one of the more stable cooking oils available, more stable than most seed oils like sunflower or corn oil at the same temperatures. What you want to avoid is very high heat, like deep frying or searing at maximum burner heat. For that, use refined olive oil or avocado oil. For everyday cooking, extra virgin is perfectly fine. Second, build a daily raw dose into your routine. Raw olive oil, meaning not cooked, delivers the highest concentration of polyphenols. The traditional Mediterranean practice is a tablespoon or 2 of raw olive oil in the morning, sometimes with a small piece of bread or mixed into a warm drink. You can drizzle it over cooked food before serving, mix it into hummus or yogurt, or simply take a spoonful on its own. Getting at least 2 tablespoons of raw or lightly heated olive oil per day gives your endothelium a consistent supply of those protective compounds. Third, pair it with tomatoes. This sounds oddly specific, but there's real science behind it. Tomatoes are rich in lycopene, a carotenoid that also supports arterial health and reduces LDL oxidation. Lycopene is fat-soluble, meaning your body absorbs it far better when consumed with fat. Olive oil and cooked tomatoes together create a synergistic combination that's been associated with better cardiovascular outcomes in Mediterranean populations. This is why a simple dish of roasted tomatoes with olive oil and herbs is genuinely one of the most heart protective things you can eat. Fourth, replace salad dressings entirely. Bottled dressings, even the ones that appear healthy, are almost universally made with refined seed oils like soybean, canola, or sunflower. These oils are high in omega-6 fatty acids, and while omega-6 itself isn't inherently bad, the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 in the modern diet is wildly out of balance. A proper olive oil and lemon or olive oil and vinegar dressing takes 30 seconds to make and turns every salad into a cardiovascular event in the best possible way. Fifth, combine it with foods that amplify its effect. Garlic is the big one. Garlic contains allicin, which improves nitric oxide production in the endothelium, the same nitric oxide that keeps your arteries relaxed and wide. Olive oil and garlic together aren't just a culinary classic. They're a cardiovascular combination that's been used in Mediterranean cultures for thousands of years. Walnuts are another one, rich in omega-3s and polyphenols themselves. A handful of walnuts dressed with olive oil, a squeeze of lemon, and some herbs gives you multiple arterial benefits in a single snack. Here's another thing that gets overlooked entirely: the connection between olive oil and blood pressure. High blood pressure is one of the most destructive forces in the cardiovascular system. It mechanically damages artery walls with every single heartbeat, accelerating plaque buildup and increasing the risk of rupture. And over 60, blood pressure management is absolutely critical. Extra virgin olive oil has been shown in multiple clinical studies to meaningfully reduce blood pressure, particularly systolic pressure, the top number. A study published in the Archives of Internal Medicine found that participants who replaced other fats with olive oil reduced their systolic blood pressure enough to cut their antihypertensive medication dose in half. That result came from food, not a pill. The mechanism here involves two things working together. The oleic acid improves cell membrane fluidity, which affects how blood vessel walls respond to signals telling them to relax. And the polyphenols, particularly hydroxytyrosol, enhance nitric oxide availability, which directly causes vasodilation, meaning the blood vessels physically widen, reducing pressure. This is the same target that many blood pressure medications aim at, just achieved through the food itself. There's also the blood sugar angle, which matters enormously for arterial health and is rarely talked about in this context. Chronically elevated blood sugar is one of the fastest ways to destroy the endothelium. When glucose levels spike repeatedly, it triggers a process called glycation. Sugar molecules essentially stick to proteins in your artery walls, making them stiff and dysfunctional. It accelerates atherosclerosis dramatically. This is why people with diabetes or pre-diabetes face such significantly higher cardiovascular risk. Extra virgin olive oil helps here too. Research has shown that consuming olive oil with a meal slows gastric emptying and reduces the glycemic response, meaning your blood sugar rises more slowly and moderately after eating. Over time, this reduces the cumulative arterial damage from blood sugar spikes. A 2017 study in diabetes care found that a Mediterranean diet rich in olive oil was associated with a 52% reduction in the risk of developing type 2 diabetes compared to a low-fat diet. If you're dealing with blood sugar concerns or metabolic issues on top of cardiovascular ones, and this is another reason why this oil isn't just a nice addition to your diet, it's genuinely therapeutic therapeutic at doses the research supports. Now, let's address something that trips a lot of people up. You might have heard that omega-3 fish oil is the best oil for your heart, and fish oil is genuinely beneficial. That's not being dismissed here. But it works differently than olive oil. Omega-3s from fish oil, EPA and DHA, primarily reduce blood triglycerides, reduce inflammation at a systemic level, and have antiarrhythmic effects. They're not directly cleaning artery walls or reducing plaque formation in the same way that olive oil, polyphenols, and oleic acid are. The two actually complement each other. If you're using high-quality fish oil regularly, keep doing it, but don't assume that covers the same ground as extra virgin olive oil, because it doesn't. Think of it this way: fish oil works more systemically, reducing overall inflammatory load. Olive oil works more specifically on the vascular endothelium, the actual lining of the arteries themselves. Both have unique mechanisms. Together, they create a powerful cardiovascular protocol. The other oil people ask about is coconut oil. Coconut oil has been heavily marketed as a heart-healthy superfood, and this is where the science and the marketing part ways significantly. Coconut oil is roughly 90% saturated fat. Some of it is medium-chain triglycerides, which the body processes differently from long-chain saturated fats, and that's where the marketing leans in. But the Harvard School of Public Health has called coconut oil pure poison. That's an extreme take. And while that overstates it, the fact remains that coconut oil consistently raises LDL cholesterol in clinical studies, and its touted cardiovascular benefits have not been backed by large-scale outcome trials anywhere close to the evidence base behind olive oil. For everyday heart health, especially over 60, extra virgin olive oil is a far more evidence-backed choice. Let's talk storage, because this is another place where people unknowingly destroy what they've paid for. Olive oil has two main enemies: light and heat. Most people store their olive oil right next to the stove in a pretty glass bottle that sits on the counter where it's warm and exposed to light all day. That's one of the worst things you can do. The polyphenols degrade significantly when exposed to heat and light. What you want is a dark cupboard, away from the oven or stovetop, at room temperature or slightly cool. A dark-coloured or opaque bottle helps. And don't buy more than you'll use in a month or two. Freshness matters. Once opened, try to finish the bottle within 30 to 60 days for maximum potency. The oil won't go rancid overnight, but polyphenol content drops meaningfully over time after opening. Buying a slightly smaller bottle more frequently beats buying a large one that sits around for months. One last practical point before we wrap up. The lifestyle that makes olive oil most effective is one where the rest of your diet isn't constantly fighting against it. If your daily intake includes a lot of processed food, refined grains, and sugar, the olive oil is doing good work that's being partially undone by everything around it. The Mediterranean dietary pattern works because the components reinforce each other: olive oil, vegetables, legumes, fish, nuts, moderate whole grains, and very little processed food. You don't have to flip your entire diet overnight, but each step in that direction multiplies what the olive oil is already doing. Add leafy greens, spinach, arugula, kale, which contain nitrates that convert to nitric oxide in the body. Add berries, which are loaded with anthocyanins that protect the endothelium. Reduce processed meat, which has been consistently linked to increased cardiovascular mortality in large cohort studies. These aren't radical changes. They're the kind of gradual shifts that, combined with 4 tablespoons of real extra virgin olive oil daily, produce measurable improvements in arterial health within weeks to months. Please understand, if you have existing cardiovascular disease, are on blood thinners, statins, or blood pressure medications, or have any diagnosed heart condition, talk to your doctor before making significant dietary changes. Food is powerful, and some of these effects, particularly on blood pressure and blood sugar, can interact with medications in ways your doctor needs to know about. This information is educational educational, not medical advice, and your situation deserves personalized guidance from someone who knows your full health history. If this gave you something useful today, hit the like button. It genuinely helps more people find this kind of content. Subscribe if you haven't already, because every week there's something new here that's grounded in real research and aimed at helping you feel and function better as you age. Drop a comment below telling me if you already use olive oil regularly and whether you're going to try making any of these changes. And in the next video, we're going into the foods that specifically boost nitric oxide production and how that single molecule might be the most important thing for keeping your arteries young. You won't want to miss that one.